Hey guys, today we're outdoors at Eric Cagorno's facility. Many of you will be familiar with Eric, and he's kind enough to invite me down. We were talking about things that we get asked on our channel. We make instructional content. I'm sure many of you will have seen Eric's stuff, and if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know exactly what these videos tend to look like. And we were asking each other, what's a common question that we get asked by golfers? And one of the biggest ones is, how do I manage to increase the distance with the driver, especially as maybe getting a bit older? You see that?
I see it a lot, yeah. And if you don't mind, I'm going to hop right in here.
Yeah.
I find myself, Rob, doing a lot of the same things in a lot of my lessons in person or online to help a golfer gain distance. I think the key point here for us watching is, like, I want, and most golfers want, to gain distance without having to swing harder. So it's how can we mechanically move or set ourselves up for success to be able to hit it farther, feeling like I'm swinging at the same tempo or speed. And certainly there's some mechanical advantages in the setup, on the way back, and even on the way through that I would teach a senior golfer, but any golfer looking for more distance.
Definitely. And I think I've taught some lessons this week. I've had some people come out and take some in-person lessons with me, and I've even had this lesson, given this lesson 3 times just this week, and I'll bring up some images of that lesson as we go through the video. The very first thing I hear more than anything else is, I'm not flexible enough anymore. I can't swing as far. What can I do to make sure that I get my distance back? And my take on that, we talked off camera about this, that it's very rarely the case that golfers aren't flexible enough really anymore. I think it's more a case of not quite understanding the task. How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, so let's say 10 senior golfers come in to see me.
Yeah.
8 out of 10, well, they all want to hit it farther. They all, used to hit it 250, they want to get back to that. 8 out of 10 would say they're not sure if they could move or they're not flexible enough. And 100% of those 8 are flexible enough to be able to move. They're just not moving the right way.
Yeah.
And the pieces that we're going to talk about here, Rob, like, effectively, I'm trying to do one thing, which is to get the butt of the club to travel farther away from the golf ball on the way back.
Yeah.
To maximize how far I can hit it without having to swing harder.
Yeah.
And then there's just some micro details that are easier or harder to do that.
Definitely. Let's start with some of those modifications. So these are things that people can do. Some of these things you can do instantly, right? Immediately. So the first thing I would have the golfer make sure they're doing is to turn their trail foot out more degrees. That internal hip rotation encourages more hip turn. And then I'd also have that foot pulled back. So I'd pull the trail foot back. That presets a little bit more of the hip closed. Again, is adding to the potential range of motion for the hip joint. And as we turn back, we'd want the right leg to straighten the most. So we're using the body as it's designed to get the maximum range of motion. So if you do feel like you've lost some of that range of motion, you can certainly get some of it back by making these first basic modifications to the setup.
Yeah, and I would have this in most anybody. The thing where it would make it the hardest to turn back, where they feel the least flexible, and I see a lot of senior golfers come in to see me, is the feet are very square.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid they're turned in this way, but let's even say they're pretty square. The stance line, typically is square, even maybe preset with the foot forward. And so you could try this at home. Like, if I'm trying to get the butt of the club farther from the ball and maximize how far I could hit it, the last thing I would do would have the foot be square, turned in, and forward. That would make it the hardest for me to turn back. I feel very not flexible in this position.
That trail hip of yours hit a limitation there much faster. And if
Quick.
you just look at that, maybe we'll put this example of the backswing versus the previous example of the backswing, just the difference in how far the club's traveled, how quickly, how prematurely that arm stopped moving.
And that doesn't feel good to me physically. Like, that doesn't feel very good compared to my foot being out. And like Rob, we talked in the previous video about the knee going out with it, the foot and the knee.
Yes.
And then being pulled back. Now this range of motion, same flexibility, same guy.
Same person, no stretching.
No stretching. Now I can get the butt of the club farther back, where I feel like I kind of reach end range of motion.
There's so much more hip turn in that movement because of how you've set up. And we'll see that in the longest hitters. They really are turning their hips in the backswing. So presetting, modifying their foot and presetting some of the hip turn helps you to get that extra range of motion.
And I think, Rob, if you don't mind me going from there to the backswing with the lower body, a lot of senior golfers come in to see me, and they're sort of surprised and often fight me a little bit, mentally at least, when I would have them allow them to extend their trail leg more.
Yeah.
And they say, Eric, gosh, I don't know if I'm supposed to straighten my leg or not. And then of course I'd show them loads of players doing that.
Yeah.
I'd show them keeping their leg flexed and how short they swing compared to the extending. And so 90% of senior golfers I work with need to extend their trail leg and turn their hips more.
Done. Agreed.
Yeah, that would be kind of piece number 2. And as I'm doing that back, Rob, I think there's a combo move with the upper body during the backswing that would often come in with the trail shoulder and the extension.
100%. And this piece of the backswing, I think, often gets misunderstood as well. Golfers believe that what you're doing there is turning more degrees. If they take a look at you from the front view there and have a look at your shoulder turn, they think that's coming from torso rotation, but really a huge amount of that comes from the retraction of the trail arm and the trail shoulder. I can get this arm to move back a tremendous amount without turning my spine or turning my torso at all.
Yeah.
And that movement or lack of understanding of that movement robs golfers of a ton of potential backswing and potential power. They get to the top of the swing. This was a perfect example of my guy this week. Gets to the top of his backswing, no trail shoulder retraction, okay? So he hits this point where his backswing finishes very prematurely, and he thinks it's because he's flexible enough. You allow a golfer to retract that trail shoulder, the most mobile joint, right? There's an enormous amount of range of motion there. Move that back behind you more, you're talking about another 5, 6, 7 inches of club travel. There's some additional power for free.
Yeah, without having to swing harder. And I find in my lessons a lot when we'll do that, I might tell someone to try and see your trail shoulder even on this side of the target.
That's a beautiful one. I do that as well.
Yeah, it's a nice checkpoint.
Put both your hands on the club, the right arm only drill, and move that right arm around you as far as you can. So you'll see what Eric's describing there. You see how from this front camera, we can actually see his trail shoulder. And this length of travel is a great way to feel how far that club could travel.
And this is sort of, to give you an idea, this is me feeling like I'm not retracting it. Trail shoulder on this side. Look at where the butt of the club and the club head. I often say, look at this, where the club head is relative to my head or the target. Watch how much farther the club head travels towards the target as I continue to retract my trail shoulder.
And how much further it goes without you really turning your torso more. That's where this often gets lost. Because one of the biggest problems golfers have when they try and turn, they make that rotation, they try to turn more, they actually end up turning in forward bend and it shortens their backswing.
Yeah, which brings us to part number 2. So I think that right arm only, feeling that shoulder around is a really good place to feel that. I'll often film the golfer before and after, and I'll show them the after, and they're like, wow, all of a sudden you got the turn. You got a lot more flexible pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So the trail shoulder retraction, but the extension you mentioned, right, as piece number 2. So I would often tell golfers, and I'd love to hear what you say as well, certainly when I take my setup, right, I'm in a forward bend, so we can look at that as like a laser out of my chest pointed down towards the ground. When I make my backswing, I'm not going to keep that chest down or laser down. That would allow me to get the butt of the club the least distance away from the ball.
Yeah.
And so as I add some extension with that, which would feel like the chest is going, more up towards the sky, getting it about level to the ground is a nice, real checkpoint. But feeling like certainly that's going up a little bit more. Here's the bent forward backswing. Remember, our goal is to get the butt of the club farther from the golf ball. So here's the bad version. Chest stays down. That's about maxed out for me.
Yeah.
Now, as I start to add extension, all of a sudden, I'm able to swing my arms and club a lot farther from the bad to the good. And so I'm really feeling a combo motion, Rob, for a lot of my senior golfers. And this is what I want you guys to feel when I'm making the backswing. Shoulder retracts, chest up towards the sky. Shoulder retracts, chest up towards the sky. And to give a specific there, I'm trying to do that and keep my head basically in the circle I started.
Exactly what I was going to jump in and say.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when you watch that from the front view, you'll see how Eric's head stays still. Many of you are trying to keep your head still. You don't know how to do it. And when it's moving, if you're watching yourself from the front view and you see your head moving, you're likely keeping this forward bend where the shirt buttons would stay down. Eric's extending out that forward bend. Trail, shoulder, back, almost trying to touch this club. You feel that?
I like that.
Get that travel of the trail, shoulder, all the way back to this club here. Beautiful.
Ooh, I like that, Rob.
Yeah.
And one little piece, obviously will show me maybe hitting some as we're going.
Yeah.
Last little piece, I think, on the follow through for me, a lot of senior golfers who struggle with speed, who I want you to hit the ball farther without swinging harder. Don't rehinge well into the follow through. And so I think as a little add-on bonus, a lot of the things that I would tell my senior golfers is, let's get set up well, let's maximize this back part. And then on the way through, right, a little bit of rehinging on the way through can help.
The way I would describe that to a student actually would be shorter feeling. Typically the energy will get thrown out into the club head more, and they'll actually get more power for less effort. And typically what they're trying to do, or what they're doing, is swinging back less distance and then trying to swing through too far, losing control. So if we reverse that, if we said make the backswing as long as we can, that would be the right arm only drill. Make this as long as I can. With the trail foot pulled back, swinging through and stopping quicker actually gets more of the energy out into the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Okay.
Beautiful.
All right, you want to hit one?
Yeah, let's do it. Yep, so if I'm putting those pieces together, I've got the trail foot and knee flared and pulled back a little bit. I like to do 1 or 2 rehearsals. In fact, I'll do it how I would if I was a student. Trail arm only, trail shoulder retracts, chest up towards the sky, to the point where my head's about centered from there. And on this one, I'm going to feel that as my only main feel. So I'm thinking about moving my body different, but I'm not adding any, speed or force yet. I should hit the ball much farther. Trail shoulder retracted, chest up towards the sky. And there's a little bit of an overdraw for me, but certainly a solid shot. I would take that speed, distance-wise.
How often would you give this to a student and see an uptake in distance, like next ball?
Oh, 100%.
Or light, right? Quick.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's the way you just demonstrated that drill is exactly how I would give it as well. I tell the student to do one full shoulder retraction piece with the right arm only. I get them to do it again a second time, and really be aware of where that body's moving to in space. And if they're demonstrating it correctly, all right, okay, put the hands on the club, go ahead and hit one pretty quickly after you've done that, just trying to repeat and get as far back as you can.
Yes, so a little bit of a draw down the left side of the fairway. And I think for me, and a lot of the lessons and the viewer watching, the ball pops off the face without me having to feel like I'm swinging harder. Like, we don't need to spend a million hours in the gym. We don't, in fact, need to be more flexible. It's more about knowing how to move and move in the right way.
Yeah, I think that's true. And if you're being told you can't move anymore, or you think you have that physical limitation, try these ideas first. Because I would say, as Eric has already mentioned, and certainly true to my teaching experience, it is very, very, very seldom the golfer can't do it. They're just not aware of what to do, how to move their body. So yeah, I think you give this a try. We would expect to see, you would see some uptake in distance pretty quickly.
Next ball.
Next ball.
Next ball.
All right, Eric.
Appreciate you, Rob.
Thanks for having me out here. If you guys have not checked out Eric's channel, where have you been? What have you been doing? We'll tag him down into the description, and make sure you go over there and subscribe. This has been great. I enjoyed making videos with you, man.
Really enjoyed it. We'll try and get you out here like once a year for this again.
Let's do it. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon.